welcome to I.N.SANE's Asylum. The doctor is in. Sane. And I'm continuing my Hellraiser series. Today I'm reviewing Hellraiser 2, Hellbound. In this one, it's a sequel continuing straight from part 1. With Kirsty believing her dad's in hell asking for her help. And she's wanting to go in to save him. Now, on to the spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled about this movie, pause the video. Alright, the movie begins with a soldier named Elliot Spencer getting ready to open the box. And when he does, the can opens, nothing comes out at first, he backs away. But then he looks close in, and then chains with hooks shoot out and cut into his face. And while he's inside hell, he gets transformed into Pinhead. And now we see how Pinhead was created. That he was human before he got sucked into hell. And then we cut to the present. Kirsty has flashbacks of the events of part 1. And the detective's trying to question her about everything, but the detective believes it's a fairy tale. And then we meet up with the doctors, Dr. Channard, and his assistant Kyle, who try to get a story out of Kirsty. And while other cops are investigating the house, one of them accidentally shoots one of the victims of part 1. And then they come across the mattress that Julia died on. And Kirsty overhears this, and she's trying to let the detective to know to destroy that mattress, so it won't bring Julia back to life. And Dr. Channer kind of shows some interest in this. So then he catches up with the detective and let him know that this is a part of a plan to help out Kirsty. And then later on, Kirsty's asleep and she sees a skinless man writing on the wall, "I'm in hell, please help." And she believes it's actually her dad, Larry. So then she's trying to ask Kyle for the favor that he wants to go into hell. And then Kyle approaches Dr. Channard. And then she tells Channard the events of part 1. Later on, Kirsty sees another patient named Tiffany, a mute girl that's obsessed with puzzles. And sort of like Kyle tells her about Tiffany. And then the next day, Kyle goes into Dr. Chenner's house to look for evidence of something. And while Chenner's out looking for a patient to sacrifice to Julia. So then he brings home this one patient that believes bugs are over him. And then Channer hands him a knife to shave off all the bugs. Believing he's shaving off all the bugs, but he's cutting himself and spilling blood all over the mattress. And Julia comes out from underneath the mattress and then kind of sacrifices him to hell. While Kyle's watching on in horror. And then Kyle goes back to Kirsty and letting Kirsty know what's going on, that he's seen Julia coming out of the mattress. And Kirsty's saying Julia doesn't deserve to come back from hell. So her and Kyle go to the house. But before then, Julia gets skinned from one of the Channard's patients. And then they show up to the house where Kirsty comes across a few of the boxes underneath glass cases. And she also comes across a photo album that shows Elliot Spencer before he became Pinhead. She takes the picture. And while upstairs, Kyle sees the room of dead bodies of all the patients that Julia sacrificed. And unbeknownst to him, he came across Julia thinking she was just a random woman. And then while upstairs, they lip lock. Kyle introduces herself and then introduces himself, and then Julia introduces herself as Julia, and then Kyle realizes he fucked. And Julia lips locks him to drain his life from him. Kirsty goes upstairs and then runs into her former stepmom who punches her out. And then Dr. Chennard offers to sacrifice Tiffany to open the box for them. While they look on behind a glass mirror window, Tiffany opens the box. Deep Throat, Butterball, and Chatterer attempt to get ready to cut her up, only for Pinhead to tell them to wait, and then pointed out that Tiffany was just a pawn in somebody else's desire. Kirsty wakes up and sees that somebody opened the hell portals, so she's getting ready to go in to look for her dad, Larry. While for Tiffany, she sees the Cenobites walk away, but then she walks into hell, and then she sees her own hell, something to do with a carnival that probably scarred her for life, making her a mute. And she sees a mother asking the doctors to help her daughter, only for a hand to go over her mouth and being pulled away. Obviously, Dr. Chennard. And then Kirsty at first comes across the Cenobites, mentioning she's going in to rescue her dad. And then Pinhead informs her that Larry's in his own hell, but then welcomes her to roam around. While Julia and Chennard are exploring hell themselves, Chennard comes across a few people mating. And then sort of like Julia shows him the Leviathan, his god, her god of the hell. And apparently the Leviathan is showing Chennard all the sick things he done in life. And then Julia informs him that she brought him here to sacrifice him. And then pushes him into a pod that pulls a few piano strings over his face, flossing his head. And then the pod closes and takes him down the hill to be made into a Cenobite. Kirsty and Tiffany kind of run into each other. And then Kirsty recognizes the front door to her dad's house. She goes in, hoping to find Larry, but then she finds a dresser of makeup, and then she sees a picture of Uncle Frank. And then she realized she was in Uncle Frank's hell, which, by the way, turns out to be women on stretcher beds being wheeled out, and whenever you pull the sheets off of them, they disappear. Which, in Frank's words, they promise, but they don't deliver. And Frank sent the message, hoping to get Kirsty down there so he can get some real sex going on. But Kirsty kind of acts like she was volunteering at first, but then she pulls one of the sheets off of one of the stretchers and burns up all Frank's hell, burning Frank into him back to skinless and burning Frank's photo on the dresser so he can never look normal again. Julia shows up in the picture with Tiffany, and then Julia acts like she's gonna be loyal to Frank, only to literally rip his heart out, and then tells him nothing personal, which were Frank's last words to her on part 1. While Kirsty and Tiffany are on the run, one of the background tunnels, the wall breaks off and then suctions everything. While Tiffany and Kirsty are trying to hang on opposite sides, Julia comes across Kirsty, and Kirsty throws her right towards the tunnel. Which, by the way, I forgot to mention, Kirsty trips earlier and drops the box. And the box is unsolvable at the moment. So Julia picks up the box and then starts coming towards them. after Kirsty throws her in the suction tunnel. She's trying to come towards them, and Tiffany trying to reach for the box. She sees Julia with the box, so she grabs onto Julia's hand, and then causing Julia to be sucked out of her skin, leaving her skin in the box laying in that hallway. And then they go run off. And then Dr. Channard's pod opens, and some kind of cap with a mixer blade in it gets attached to his head, and somehow this thing is connected to the Leviathan. Tiffany and Kirsty manage to get out of hell. While they're back at the hospital, Dr. Channard comes out from behind one of the walls with his new Cenobite look, and Tiffany saying her first words, "Oh shit." As Tiffany and Kirsty are running away, Channard kills off all his patients, which at some point he got them to start operating on boxes of their own. While back in hell, Tiffany and Kirsty run into Pinhead and the rest of the Cenobites. Pinhead getting ready to torture Kirsty, but Kirsty pulls out and remembers she has the photo of Elliot Spencer. And she mentions she came for information this time. And she shows Pinhead a picture of Elliot Spencer. And Pinhead asking her, another one that escaped? And then Kirsty reminds him that it's him. And then because of this, Pinhead's starting to remember that he was human, along with the other 3 Cenobites. And because they got their humanity back, Dr. Channard comes in as a Cenobite trying to get a hold of Tiffany and Kirsty. But then the Cenobites decide to confront him. Since they got their humanity, they realize they're not the enemy of Kirsty and Tiffany, but the enemy of hell. And because of this, Channard fires some snakes that turn into sticks, killing his victims. Anyway, first he kills Deep Throat, and she turns back into her human self after she dies. Does the same to Butterball. And then he shoots one at Chatter, causing Chatter to fall right into a spinning pillar. So the pillar kind of spins at first, and then you see him in his human body. So leaving Pinhead one-on-one with the Sergeant, Pinhead kind of turns back into Elliot Spencer. And then getting ready to fight Channard, only for Channard to just slit his throat, and he dies. And then Tiffany and Kirsty go back to Julia's skin and then grab the box. Tiffany starts solving the puzzle, only for Dr. Channard to interrupt and try to go after Tiffany. Kirsty kind of runs off. And then a pod comes up from behind Tiffany as Channard is trying to get her into the pod. But Julia stops her from coming into the pod and then distracts Channard long enough for Tiffany to solve the puzzle and turn the box back into a box, closing off Leviathan and killing off Dr. Channard. And in the process, Tiffany almost falls off the edge of the cliff. And Julia reaches down to rescue her and then tells her to trust her. So Tiffany actually reaches up to her, and then the skin's dripping off her arm. But then Julia manages to grab the other arm and then pulls Tiffany out of the pits. And Julia pulls off her skin, revealing that it was Kirsty underneath the skin this time around. And then hell's about to close up. Tiffany and Kirsty escape and run out of the hell portal as it closes down. And then a few moments later, we see Tiffany and Kirsty walking out of the asylum together. While at Channard's house, you see some movers. One of them being one of the movers that helped Larry put the mattress upstairs at the house. is one of these movers that is going into a house, and he sees the mattress covered in blood. He reaches over it and then tries to get his partner to check this out, only for some arms to reach up and pull the mover into the mattress. And then a pillar comes out, a pillar of souls, with Pinhead's face. You see Julia's face in the box. And then the pillar kind of stops with the Vagrant from part 1, saying to the other movie, "What's your pleasure, sir?" And then the movie ends. Alright, on this one, being the second one I've seen, as part 3 was the first one I've seen altogether. It wasn't what I was expecting, but I did love this one the first time I seen it. So for this, I give it 4 Mr. Statics out of 5. That's all for this episode of I.N.SANE's Asylum. The Doctor is out.